Welcome to the Delight Your Marriage podcast, the show where you hear from amazing and inspiring wives sharing their struggles, triumphs, and advice for this journey called marriage. Here's your host, Bella Rose.
Hey there and welcome. This is Bella Rose. Oh my goodness. This is such an incredible conversation with a dear woman, Marie Wood. I had the opportunity to meet her several years ago, and her message, her story was so impactful. I think you're going to be encouraged and inspired by what she's gone through, and just her life every single day is full of difficulty, and yet, what God has taught her shows her the woman she is today. She's a lot of fun, and we have fun on today's podcast. Before we dive in, I do want to mention that if you are looking for an incredible marriage from difficulty, loneliness, feeling unloved, maybe even in intimacy, I want to invite you to potentially have that transformed, that God can absolutely transform that by God's grace. That's what happens through my work with people, with coaching, either one-on-one or team coaching or some other programs and options that I do with people, couples or one-on-one. And I want to give you that opportunity to speak with me, to discuss what's going on and really get clarity on the challenges you're having. And if that seems to be the right fit for you, go ahead to www.delightyourmarriage.com/call. That's a free call with just me, just you, for 40 minutes, and we're going to dive into what's going on in your marriage and how to get to the other side for freedom and peace and playfulness and fierce sexiness. Alrighty, let's dive in with Marie and my conversation. Talk to you soon. Okay, well, welcome, Delight Your Marriage listener. I'm so grateful that you are here and joining me. And welcome, Marie. I'm so happy you're here.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an awesome interview. Marie, since we met, I was trying to count it up. I think it was 5 years ago, maybe 4, but it was a while. And it was when my son was young. And I just remember hearing your story and being like, oh my gosh, I just want to dive in and understand, like, there's so much rich, good stuff that you've lived through. And I just can't wait to let the audience hear more. So do you mind just kind of starting off and introducing a little bit about yourself, your family?
So I'm Marie Wood, and I'm married to David Wood. We've been married for about 17 years, and we have 5 boys. I forgot to mention that, but we had another child since I saw you.
Wow.
So our basketball team is complete.
Yes.
Yeah. And and 2 of our boys have a rare congenital myopathy. It's a life-threatening illness, and so I co-founded a nonprofit, and I serve as the vice president of a nonprofit that serves the families affected by this condition. Wow. And I'm also the director of David's ministry. He's a professional apologist, and I work with him as well. Although technically, I guess you could say I'm a stay-at-home mom. But I'm very busy.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Sounds like you're wearing a lot of different hats. Wow.
Yeah, definitely.
Amazing. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Can you describe a little bit more about what it means to have this rare condition that you talked about?
So it's called myotubular myopathy, and it only affects about 1 in 50,000 live male births.
Wow.
So it's actually considered ultra rare within the rare disease community. And Reid he's 11 years old, and when he was born, he wasn't breathing on his own. He wasn't moving, very low body scores. He basically looked like a rag doll. Just he was beautiful and pink, but just other than that, he just didn't seem like he had any other signs of life. And, he had to be revived right away. And it took a while to get the diagnosis because, again, it's ultra rare. And when we did get the diagnosis, they told us that children with this condition usually don't live past the first year or the second year. Pretty much almost all of them die. And so they the medical team was sort of pushing what they called comfort care, and which is sort of coded language for, let's just make him comfortable and give him some morphine. And which, when you do that to a child who is respiratorily compromised, it's kind of like helping them to die less painfully. And I told them, well, you're saying that he won't see his second birthday, but I don't hear God saying that. And we're just going to do everything we can to make his life as joyful and meaningful and full of love as possible.
Wow.
And then, we weren't planning to have any more kids after that. But I did get pregnant again with Haley. And at that time, we had done genetic testing, so we knew that I carried the mutation and that it's an X-linked disorder, meaning that if I have a daughter, she has a 50% chance of carrying the disease as I do. And if I have a son, he has a 50% chance of having the disease. When I spoke to the geneticist while I was pregnant with Paley, she asked me, if we wanted to do an amnio so that we could keep our options open. And I said, well, we don't need to worry about any other options because my son has a 50% chance of having this condition, but he has a 100% chance of being loved. And so
I love that.
And he's, and so Paley just turned 9.
Oh my gosh.
So,
11 and 9.
Yeah. So
that's incredible.
We're really proud of them. They're happy, sweet boys, very affectionate. They make our lives beautiful.
Wow. And what is, so what are some of their limitations then at this point?
Well, so they are completely dependent on medical technology to survive. They're both trached, so they both have tracheostomy tubes. They both have ventilators. They're pretty much vented 24/7. They need wheelchairs for to walk or to get around, and they need feeding pumps. They have gastrostomy tubes because they can't swallow. So basically, the disease affects every muscle in the body. Even blinking,
Oh my gosh.
They don't blink on their own. Dry eyes, this has become an issue lately, and it's Reid just had to have surgery for that, and Reid's had 4 surgeries in the past year.
My gosh.
Yeah. And probably the hardest thing is that I've had to do CPR on my own kids, and
oh my goodness.
Yeah, and so that's probably one of the most traumatic things that we've had to deal with. Just finding a blue baby and kind of having to overcome that initial shock and pain and worry and work through that and do what you have to do to bring them back and save them, with God's grace helping, because I don't know how else I would have been able to do that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. And are they some of your older children, or?
So our oldest son is Lucian. He just turned 16, and then we have Blaze, who's 14, and then Reid, 11, Paley, 9, and Reid and Paley have the condition, and then there's Kepler, who's a baby. He's almost 1.5. Yeah.
1.5. Oh my gosh. Wow. So really, there's not potential for them to have more autonomy than what they have right now.
Well, what's kind of exciting is that there is a lot of research being done into their condition. There's currently a clinical trial. want to say 8 years ago, they found there was a veterinarian in Canada who discovered a Labrador retriever who had the same condition.
Oh,
And that Labrador retriever led to the creation of a colony of dogs that have myotubular myopathy, and some of them are healthy and some of them are carriers. And so through research with the dogs, and some of the families have adopted the dogs too after they've,
wow.
participated in the research. They've been able to cure the disease in dogs.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, through gene replacement therapy. Yeah, which is
Oh
just
my
a
gosh.
very new technology, cutting edge. So it's kind of exciting. And there are other things being studied as well. And there's a company in Europe that's studying replacing the protein that the DNA codes for, the mutated DNA codes for a protein. And so they're looking at modulating the proteins. And so it's amazing, really, because it's such a rare disease. And rare diseases are also called orphan diseases. And they're called orphans because nobody really wants to adopt them because they're not seen as lucrative.
Right.
And, and yet you have all this amazing intellect and technology and resources being poured into this one condition.
Wow.
It's sort of mind-blowing. And I really enjoy the work that I do and uniting that community with the families and the professionals, the researchers and that type. And just, I just love that aspect of what I do for the community. Yeah.
That's incredible. That's incredible. It's such a gorgeous way of suffering and seeing how you can
Right.
give to, help people that are also suffering.
Right. To kind of find the redemption in the midst of all that and what we're dealing with. I think that, finding kind of meaning and purpose in the pain and in the struggle. And there's always that idea in the back of my mind as I'm working through some huge challenge or fight or battle with insurance or whatever it is.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, okay, let me remember this, this, and this so that I can share that with the community and help somebody else who might have to face this battle coming up. And it's very mutual, and it is a very powerful, beautiful thing. Yeah.
Wow. When did you start this organization?
So we just had our 10th biennial family conference. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Congratulations.
yeah. It's 10 years of kind of connecting the community. And
Wow.
we didn't really formalize the nonprofit until probably about halfway through, but we were raising funds under another nonprofit that existed. But but the work has been going on for about 10 years, this conference and uniting the community and providing resources. Mm-hmm.
So 1 year in is when you decided you were going to help others.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible. First question, two questions is, first question is, where can people find out more about your nonprofit, maybe online? What's the website they can donate to?
Yeah, it's mtm-cnm.org. So MTM is the shortcut of saying myotubular myopathy, and CNM is the shortcut for saying centronuclear myopathy, which is a related kind of umbrella of which MTM is a part of. So
okay. I'll have that also on the show notes for people to, easily give to. Like this is a huge and wonderful, valuable service, and it's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So the next thing I wanted to ask is, I think there are a lot of people that are going through their work and their life and their marriage, and they don't have a ton of purpose in their life. They don't kind of wake up with, I'm going to do God's work again today. Like, this is the stuff I'm supposed to be doing. This is going to matter in eternity. How did you really discern what that was supposed to be for your life?
Do you mean serving or do you mean like just the day-to-day life type thing, or?
Yeah, I mean, when I look at what you just described, and we haven't even gotten into so much of the other stuff I can't wait to talk about. It's coming, guys. Just wait. But I'm just thinking about this. You're connecting people. You're helping parents. You're helping those have hope and connection and community.
Right.
That's a definite God-given calling. Like, how did you decide that this is something you wanted to spend hours and hours on?
It's weird. It just sort of happened organically. That's all I can say. I just seemed to fall into that position. It just seemed to flow out of whatever I was doing and just how I was living. I guess you could say people are drawn to me at times. And so I guess it's just how I live my life. I just have a lot of joy in the midst of everything. And I guess that has attracted people. And then I just work. I just like to serve. And I feel like that's what I love about the people I work with on our team, our leadership team, is that we're all really about serving. And we just want to help others, and we just appreciate, I guess, those who've kind of lent out a helping hands or encouraging word on our own journey. And it just feels like when you have gratitude for something like that, it flows back out of you. And so I guess that's just how it happened. And at one time there were a lot of people working on this project, and they sort of kind of drifted off. And I guess the ones who are left, who are just really committed to making that time and willing to kind of do hard work in addition to living life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So,
Your whole life is hard work. That's incredible. How, and again, I feel like this is probably going to be the first half of our interview, and then we'll kind of go into the other fascinating part of your life. But how has your marriage been in this regard, like with your sons, in terms of support, in terms of what that's been like?
Well, in the beginning, it was hard for David to kind of deal with everything that was happening to Reid. So Reid is the child who's a little older with the condition.
Yeah.
And, changing a trach on a baby is kind of scary. It's sort of intimidating, especially if you don't have any medical background or nursing experience or anything like that. Interestingly, as a child, I used to volunteer for Operation Smile. I used to, spend a lot of time in the hospital because my mom was a nurse, and I would go and see little kids and patients. And I used to do volunteer work where I would go to children's hospitals and nursing homes and, sing dance and stuff with the youth club and things like that. So I guess I was already primed to be more comfortable with it than David was. And so for him, it was very intimidating. It was scary. And you're thinking, my child's life is in my hands right now. And for him, that kind of pressure, it was something that he just really didn't know how to cope with at first. And I remember the first 2 years after Reid was born were probably the hardest for me in terms of not feeling that he was as involved in that. And I mean, the good news was that, when Reid was born and Reid came home from the hospital when he was about 9 months. So prior to that, he was just, they're trying to stabilize him. And when he came home, I remember David saying to me, "I'll do anything with Luke and Blaze. Please don't ask me to do any of the medical stuff with Reid because I just can't deal with it." And it wasn't that he didn't love him. He would hold him and he would kiss him and hug him and talk to him, but he was just totally scared about, one of the things we have to do is we have to suction a trach. So, you build up secretions in your mouth and your airway throughout the day. And if you don't have the strength to swallow, you can't get rid of it. Or if you don't have the strength to cough, you can't clear your own airway. So what we have to do is we have to suction. And it's putting a tube through the trach and suctioning out the secretions. And, I think when people aren't expecting it, they're sort of like either grossed out or scared or whatever. For David, he was more scared. I'm not going to do it right, or I'm going to hurt him when I do that. And so that type of thing stressed him out. And I remember really wondering at some point if we were going to make it, because I was really feeling like I was in it alone.
Yeah.
And I reached out to a really close friend and asked her to pray. And I said, I just, he's just putting everything on me. And I said, I can't take this, And the very next day, he said to me, he said, you're just doing everything on your own. I want you to show me how to do everything. And I want you to go visit your best friend who was stationed in Hawaii, a girl I grew up with, and had just come to see me in New York. And he's like, let's try to find a plane ticket and have a time for you to go and spend a week with her. And I'll tell my mom to come and stay with me and help me with Reid and the boys. And it was just like a huge
oh my gosh,
shift. And it was the day after I just reached out to this friend. I was like, please just pray, because I really can't take his lack of consideration for my needs anymore.
Wow.
Huge. And I felt so thankful that he did that. I'm still kind of a little choked up remembering that, and just God's faithfulness to really move him in that way, and that he was receptive to it. And it was like, he has really stepped up to the plate in so many ways. Now, what was interesting was when Paley was born, I think that also threw him again, kind of in another way.
Yeah.
He was sort of taking on the world at that point. He had really gotten more involved in his work with, evangelizing Muslims, even counter jihad work. And, it felt like he was so caught up in all of that he just wasn't really there for me while Paley was in the hospital.
Wow.
And I felt it was even less so than when Reid was a baby. So I was confused and I didn't really understand what was happening. And I felt that he was withdrawing. I felt that he was rejecting us. And it finally came to a head one day where I said to him, I said, you're not coming to the hospital with me. You're not holding Paley. I was like, do you not love us? Do you not want to be with us? And try not to cry, but he said, well, I just feel like you're so good at everything and you're such an awesome mom and you know what to do. And he goes, and I don't. And he goes, and I feel like Islam, I can take that on. Our friends over here, I can help them with their troubled marriage or whatever it is. I can help these people and I can help them. He's like, but I can't do anything for Reid and Paley. I can't fix it. I can't fix the problem. And that was like a huge eye opener for me, because I was like, oh, this is what you've been worrying about? And I said, I don't need you to do that. I don't need you to fix it. I don't need you to make it okay. I said, I just want to know you have my back. And I said, because when you're with me, when you're beside me, I feel stronger. And I was like, and that's all you have to do. Yeah. And the irony is that saying that to him gave him, it almost like liberated him from this burden he was putting on himself, and gave him the freedom to actually become really good at all the medical cares all of a sudden, to the point where he's probably one of the best people at clearing out their lungs when they're sick. And where he's better than all the nurses, and sometimes I feel like he's better than me now. And
Wow.
but it was kind of giving him that okay,
Yeah.
and
I
so
want to just mention how powerful that is, and how I mean, your story is just incredible. And one thing that you mentioned is, I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to be beside me. I want you to know, I want to know that you have my back. I feel like
yeah,
that's such a huge thing for a wife to feel, that the husband is beside her,
yeah,
with her in it.
yeah,
And like you said, it's not that he needs to fix it. He just needs to be with her in it. And,
yeah,
so often husbands listen to this show. So I just want to mention, your wife needs you to listen and be with her
mhm,
much more than she needs you to fix the situation, whether
yeah,
it's health related, finances, whatever the big giant monster is in your life. She needs you to know that she's not alone. That's what it
yeah.
really.
That we're in this together, and that
Yes. Yes, exactly. And then look at the results, is ultimately he feels empowered to do what he needs
yeah,
to do.
yeah. That was what was so amazing. Yeah.
Mm,
Um,
that's so
so
powerful.
I mean, that was like a huge shift in our relationship, where it just kind of opened my eyes to a way that I had been misunderstanding kind of how he is, and probably just differences in the way that men and women think in general.
Agreed. Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, and then probably another huge, really powerful moment with this whole journey and with our relationship would be um, the time in 2015. Paley was 5, and he had he almost died. Well, he did. He died. I found him. I had put him in his bed a little early. I was playing with his brothers and David. We're just probably watching. I think we were just watching funny YouTube videos in the next room, and it was probably about half an hour. And David said, "Hey, shouldn't you go check on Paley?" And I said, "Oh yeah, he's fine. He's got the alarms. They'll go off if anything happens." But I started walking over to his room just because, I was like, yeah, it's still good to check on him. And when I got to his doorway, I saw that his pulse oximeter, which gives his heart rate and his oxygen level, came up as 0, 0.
Oh my
And I
goodness.
felt like I had been like kicked in the stomach. I felt like I
Oh,
was going to vomit and pass out.
oh
But
my
and
gosh.
I just rushed over to his side, and he was completely gray.
Oh
He
my
had
gosh.
like bubbles that had like come out of his mouth, and he was gone. And I screamed, David, call 911. I pulled him out of the bed. I put him on the ground, and I started doing CPR. I didn't have an ambu bag, so usually attach the ambu bag to the trach, but I just started breathing directly into his tracheostomy tube and doing chest compressions. And as I was doing this, I was praying, and
Yeah.
I was almost like bargaining with God. And I was like, please, Lord, don't let this happen. How can I serve you if he's gone? And I'll just be so devastated, and I'll be so broken. I'll never be of use to you again. And as I was thinking these things, I felt like God was speaking back to me. He was saying, I'll be with you. I'll see you through it, and you'll come out even stronger. I can expand your ministry through this and all of those things. And I finally said something, well, I don't want that. I want him to be okay. I want him to be alive. And but as I was doing the CPR, I remember kind of getting to this place of peace, where I was saying, okay, Lord, if you're going to take him, then you're going to take him. And I said, but I've just got to keep trying. And I said, so this is my request. I said, when you tell me no, I'll accept it. And I said, but it's got to be somebody else who tells me no, because I'm just going to keep trying and asking for yes. And at that moment, when I thought that prayer, I felt almost like this bubble of air come up in my throat. And I was like, oh, I have to breathe into his trach right now. And as I breathed in, I had this powerful sensation that life just went into him.
Oh my gosh.
I said, whoa, life went into him. And I started doing the chest compressions. Well, I even felt like, now I have to press. And I was doing the chest compressions, and his heart rate started sustaining after that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And
Oh
by
my-
that time, the EMTs had gotten there, and they were kind of amazed that I had revived him. They said, one of them said, I've been doing this for 15 years, and I've never come to a house where there's been a cardiac arrest and a family member has revived the patient with CPR.
Wow.
Yeah. And what was crazy was, even after all this, I still felt so riddled with guilt that I allowed it to happen in my mind, that this was my fault. I should have been watching him more closely. And I went with him to the hospital, stabilized him. I came home the next morning just to take a shower and grab some things, and I was going to go back to the hospital. And David saw me, and I was, I would be talking and tears would be spilling over because I hadn't fully cried. So it was just kind of like squeezing out, like every now and again. And he said, okay, we're going to go in the bedroom. We're going to lay down on the bed, and I'm going to hold you, and you're going to cry. And you're going to cry until you're done crying.
Oh my God.
And then you'll be done, and then you can go back to the hospital. And I was like, okay. And so we went into the room, and he's holding me, and I just start saying everything that I feel. And I'm like, how can you even love me? This is my fault. I should have been watching him more closely. How can you even stand to be around me right now? How can you even stand to look at me? I'm such a failure. I'm such a terrible mother. And he just held me. He didn't even try to like reason with me. He was just holding me and letting me cry and say all this ridiculous stuff. But, and what was funny was when I said it, as soon as it came out of my mouth, in my mind I was believing it, but as soon as it came out of my mouth, it was as if it didn't ring true.
Yeah.
And that by speaking it out, I realized how false it was.
Yeah.
And but he was just holding me through this, and until I probably cried for an hour, just like shrieking and condemning myself. And he's just holding me. And I always say, like, at that moment, probably more than any other time, like, it just was such a huge realization of how he was grace to me in that moment. David was really grace to me. And in being that way, he really, it was as if I could feel the love and the grace of God beyond him that was coming through him in that moment. And yeah, I still get choked up remembering it because it was really powerful. He could love me through that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so amazing. Yeah, that's really, really incredible. On so many reasons, so many levels. Some of the listeners know, they might have heard my story with my brother where he died, had a cardiac arrest for 13 minutes last April, and he was revived.
Wow. Oh, it's amazing.
It's incredible. Yeah. And it's a God dead to life story, very similar to what you just described.
Wow.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. And like, just to hear like God can absolutely raise the dead. This in age, he does that. And that's really powerful. It's really, really incredible. And I love one thing that you said, how our spouse can simply listen to us and just allow to be a safe place for our feelings. And then once you articulate it out, it starts to lose its power. The enemy, he can't lie to you in the darkness anymore. It's in the light.
Right.
Like, oh, that's not true.
Yeah.
And like you said, David didn't have to say a thing. He just had to hold you.
Yeah.
And let it happen.
Yeah. Probably if he had tried to reason with me, I would have just argued back. But
right. Exactly.
I am really horrible.
Exactly. But how powerful it was. I mean, you needed that so desperately in this situation.
Yeah, really did. Mm-hmm.
It's just incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I am thoroughly messed up. This is so
I was going to say,
good.
you probably have a tissue disclaimer.
I really, that's a very important thing. I'll see if I can warn everyone in the beginning. amazing. She is truly, truly amazing. I hope that there has been nuggets from this call that you have just taken hold of, and it'll inspire you, encourage you, and really allow her and the way she thinks about marriage and her life and her relationship with Jesus and her love for people. Just let that be a role model, as you're doing your life, and just come to mind this incredible woman that you just heard. I'm just so inspired and encouraged. Next week, you are going to be thrilled to hear the next part, because it just gets better in terms of the impact and incredible nature of her story. So I look forward to chatting with you more soon, or on a personal one-on-one call with me, delightyourmarriage.com/call, so that, you can have an incredible marriage and praise God through that as well, and grow in that area, and do all that He wants you to do in this world and enjoy it. All right, I'm going to let you go, and I will talk to you next week. God bless. Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you've been blessed by this, why not share it? Until next time, live with love, wisdom, and passion.